It's Machiavellian. They don't care if they destroy Peter Shumlin's character and his reputation. They just want to win. And that's not the Vermont way.
Anything else working?
You know, sometimes I think it does work. I went through this in 2002. I've been on the receiving end of challenges about my integrity and about my character. It's not a lot of fun, and I don't fault Peter at all for fighting back on this. What's disturbing to me is, as Deb said, they say something, it's proven to be wrong, and they continue to say it. Okay? Did they back up their statements about me? I mean, I'm sort of old news as far as that's concerned, because obviously I didn't win the primary, but they couldn't back up what they said. And I think the campaigns have a responsibility, and I hope you folks in the press corps have a responsibility as well to follow up. It was very disturbing to me a few years ago to have a member of the press corps say that all politicians lie to get elected, so it's not news anymore. I hope it is news. Okay, I really do. I mean, there are only a few of you here, and it wasn't any of you who said that. But I hope that's not what's going on. And yeah, the campaigns are going to fight back. And campaigns, but you expect it. And somebody in the middle, and I hope it's the press corps, will decide whether that is an accurate statement or not. Brian Dubie in his ads is saying Peter wants to raise $1 billion in new taxes to pay for health care. Well, you know, if you go to a government-paid system, you might be actually raising $1 billion. But what they're neglecting to say is you're reducing our health insurance premiums, Vermonters, by over $1 billion. Okay, so it's let's talk about the reality, and let's ask Brian to be really clear on what he's saying. And I think those ads are distortions and deceptive.
Why do you think negative ads might work, Doug? What's led you to believe that?
Oh, I think it's because I think a lot of people believe them. I think a lot of people who are trying to follow the race don't have time necessarily to dig into all the details. They see the ads. They see the stories about the ads. I mean, a lot of the press coverage is about the advertising, and I think that's news, and I think that's appropriate. I watched in my polling in 2002, my unfavorables go from about 15% to 55%, and I was the same person at the end that I was at the beginning, but I was the target of relentless attacks. Some of that is normal because it's a campaign. You start finding it, people say, oh, I'm voting for candidate X, so I don't like candidate Y anymore. But I watched that happen. I've watched it happen across the country. I mean, if you look at negative advertising around the country, and how often it's done, you recognize it's done for a reason because a lot of people are willing to believe it.
One thing that's interesting that I've observed in my 12 years as Secretary of State, actually, is that what's made Vermont different in the past is because we're so small, voters, by and large, have met the candidates. Not every single voter and every single candidate, but you might remember some years ago there was when Bernie was first running for the Senate, that first time it was an open seat, the ads running against him were that, I don't remember the exact attack, but it implied that he supported being soft on child abusers and child sexual abusers, and people know Bernie, and they know that just couldn't be true. So that kind of attack falls short. So I think in this campaign, when Brian Dubie went out and said Peter Shumlin was going to release child molesters and drug dealers, that went too far because people know Peter, know that could not be true. So when you so those kinds of extreme ads don't work, but the more subtle attacks on character and integrity, I think they can have more of an effect, and that's why they're investing so much money into it. I mean, you should take a look at how much money is going into their advertisings, into the negative advertising, as opposed to telling Vermonters what Brian Dubie's going to do to make Vermont a better place. And that's really what we're here for. Is enough of the negative character destruction. Let's hear what you're going to do. Let's hear the answer on choice. Are you going to cut family planning? Are you going to make abstinence-only sex education the only sex education that the state will help fund? What are you going to do with health care? Really, I mean, there's no real substance to his proposal. So how are we going to get cost savings? And how are you going to deal with the budget? There's 2% across the board, except for whenever you ask him something specific, because that's something he's not going to touch. So let's get rid of the smoke and mirrors. Answer some questions, because that's what Vermonters deserve to hear from candidates.
Well, let me take us back to the beginning, which is what the 5 of us showed, that 5 people going out, all right, and talking about real issues with real solutions can get 74,000 Vermonters at the end of August to come out and vote in a primary, okay? Where I'm sure all of us are hearing, you've got to be hearing people like saying, oh, I'm so turned off, I'm not voting for anybody. That's not the impact that positive campaigning has. And I want to go back to Peter Welch and Martha Rainville, who set their tone jointly at the beginning and said, we will not participate, and we will denounce anyone that runs ads in our campaigns or in our behalf that's negative. So they ran a really hot statewide race that was up for grabs, and there wasn't a negative word spoken. You can control the outside money and what they say if you choose to do it. And Brian is not choosing to do it. Brian is choosing to be negative. He is choosing to avoid issues, and Vermonters deserve better.
Last question?
Amen. There you go.
Do you think that the Pinocchio ad was a mistake because it distorted Dubie's face? It could be seen as a negative ad?
I think that's silly. I mean, I think that's silly. It was a humorous ad getting to an important point, which was that Dubie was lying. And look, I'm a mom of kids, and I know how important it is to hold people accountable when they're doing something that's unacceptable. And so I think that ad was an important ad. It was a good ad because it said, Brian Dubie, you're lying. And it was specific. It said, first you said you held up the list of offenders. That wasn't the list of offenders. It was factually accurate about lies that Brian Dubie said about Peter Shumlin. Peter wasn't going after his character. Peter was defending the truth. And he did it in a humorous way, which I think makes it more accessible to people. So I found, I think he should still be running that ad and adding more to it because the lies keep on mounting up.
Anything else, guys? Thanks, everybody.